If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. Without a doubt, I can say that one of the most common situations that I would work with people on in my counseling office is the whole situation of having to come to terms with living inside a family system that's dominated by narcissistic themes. Sometimes you have just one very strong narcissistic member of a family that just runs roughshod over all the rest. More often than not, you can have maybe a dominant narcissist inside a family system with all sorts of minions who are going along with that, whether it's the enablers or the mini narcissist or, flying monkeys and things like that. And you're over here thinking, this is driving me crazy. It's making me less and less effective as a person. You can have all sorts of memories of holidays that have been ruined, or just simple family gatherings that you would have, going over to grandma's house for Saturday night supper. Certainly, whenever there's a situation where a person is ill inside the family and how we're going to treat that person, end of life situations and things like that. I mean, the possibilities of engaging with narcissists inside of a family are endless. Now, in order for you to break free from this strongly narcissistic family system, first, we're going to say that knowledge is power. The more you understand the themes that are predominant in these kind of families, then the more it can give you a springboard to know that this is what I'm going to do differently. So I want to talk with you about 7 very common themes that we see inside of narcissistic families, and then we're going to talk about what we can do so that you don't get caught up in all of the turmoil that this generates. Now, first and foremost, you have the theme of dominance superseding love. In narcissistic families, there's just an understanding. The narcissist says, I'm the one that's in charge. Don't you forget it. And these individuals can have a very strong authoritarian style of engaging with you. You'd like to think that a family is a place where love is taught and love is just a given. But with narcissists, no, dominance is taught. You need to know who's in charge here. You need to know who calls the shots, and make sure that you understand your position inside a system that has that kind of theme. Which then leads, of course, to a second theme, and that is expectations supersede acceptance. You'd like to think that family is the place that you can go where you know that you're going to be accepted just for what you are. Maybe the world out there is less than generous toward you, but it's like, at least I have my family. Well, there's some people, it's like, if I go to my family, I'm not going to be accepted. So much of the narcissistic system is all about fitting people into a mold, and there's kind of an indoctrination that's been there for so long. And so it's like, well, the more I go into that system, all I know is the only thing that matters is the agenda. I've been taught the agenda my entire life, and there's no room for deviation from the agenda. So I don't know that I can be accepted by these people. Well, that being the case, then, a third theme that we tend to see in these families is that the false self supersedes the exploration of the real self. Going along with the notion that says we like for family to be a safe place, it's like, no, inside of narcissistic families, if you're that person that's trying to break free, you're thinking, there is no way that I'm about to reveal my real self to these people. And you know that if you talk about what you really want or think or feel or how you interpret things, you're going to get clobbered if you say anything that breaks the image that everybody is trying to portray. And so it's all about keeping up a front. As long as you keep the proper front up, we're going to be okay. But other than that, it's curtains for you. Well, that leads then to the understanding of a fourth theme, and that is telling supersedes discussing. You'd like to think that in healthy families, there's a lot of sharing and curiosity about who we are. Hey, I've got this preference, but I know you have your life experiences. Why don't we just all talk about what makes sense to each one of us and see if we can come up with a consensus? No, inside narcissistic families, there's a lot of mandates. There's a lot of forcefulness. There's the sense that says, look, let me tell you, here's how you need to be. And whenever you have something that you'd like to share that would be a bit different, there's interrupting or there's invalidation, all of that. Well, that being the case, then a fifth pattern tends to emerge, and that is conformity supersedes creative exploration. Inside families, let's suppose that you have something that says, you're the kind of person that says, well, I want to try this over here, or I know that you want me to be this way, but I've kind of got an idea that I'd like to run down. And inside narcissistic family systems, it's like, no, we don't do deviations around here. And if you think differently, you want to go to a different belief system or a different pattern of managing your affairs, that's considered treason. That's considered rejection of us. You'd better not do that. Conformity is so important. Well, then that leads to another pattern, and that is anger supersedes patient teaching. The anger inside of narcissistic families is just a given. There's lots of agitation and irritability and impatience. What's wrong with you? And why can't you do things? And so whenever you bring up something that's different, or if you do something or fail or disagree, then there's no discipline. By the way, the classic sense of the word discipline is simply to teach. But instead, the anger is there to punish. It's punitive. And you can have contempt. You can have just a stonewalling that can be a part of it, to say nothing of the rage and the forcefulness and the guilt inductions that go along with that. Lots of shame communication. Well, then that leads to a seventh pattern, and that is, if you're going to stay inside this narcissistic family system, shallowness supersedes deep connections. There are no deep connections inside a narcissistic family system because superficiality is what it's all about. Narcissism is all about covering up the real self. It's all about compensating for inadequacies. But then, of course, these people can't go into that space. Externals are way more important than going into the internals. So here you are inside your narcissistic family system. And of course, there are all sorts of patterns inside of you that can emerge that are less than healthy. You can get caught up in the anger, and you can have all sorts of hate or disgust towards these individuals. You wind up becoming a keeper of secrets. You can perhaps sometimes go into your rebelliousness. Sometimes it's of a very overt nature. Other times it's a passive-aggressive form of non-compliance, but it's your way of saying, I can't stand these people. You can sometimes go into a codependent pattern, acquiescing to that individual, just laying down your uniqueness. Other times, you can just do an in-your-face, let me tell you, kind of angry exchange with that family. Anytime you have that reactive pattern like that, it means that you're still caught up in all of their garbage. So let's just pause and figure out, what am I going to do if I've got this narcissistic system and it's very clear that these people have no intention of working with me or engaging with me towards a healthier alternative? First and foremost, we're going to say, stop. Breathe deeply and give yourself time to simply reflect. And it may be that in your times of reflection, you may be somebody that says, well, I want to read about healthy ways of living and healthy alternatives. I want to get my thoughts together. Perhaps you might journal. Perhaps you'll seek counseling, which I think is a wonderful situation or possibility if you have that kind of history. But give yourself time, permission to say, I'm going to pull back, and I'm not going to just get caught up into the frenzy that this system brings to me. That being the case, the second thing that you can do is to develop your own vision of who you are. what are the traits that you want to have most predominant? And specifically, how do those traits translate to day-to-day scenarios? If there is that disagreement, or if you do have a preference, or if you do have an interpretation that's different. As you have a vision of who you are, what would that healthy you say and do and respond even when you know that you're not going to be the same as these individuals? Give yourself permission to define who you're going to be. A third notion that as far as breaking away from that narcissistic family system is when you need to, speak up. But don't make the speaking up the end game. There may be times when you'll need to say to those narcissistic people, I don't think the same as you. I don't have the same priorities or beliefs or preferences or interpretations as you. Go ahead and say it. But then also know that there's an incredibly low likelihood that these people will say, oh, good, tell me more, because they're not going to do that. And so don't make your speaking up the end game. Instead, a fourth thing that you can do is make your personal adjustments the end game. Go further. See yourself as being the family member that's willing to break from all of those duties and expectations and requirements. And if they get mad, well, by definition, narcissists have a whole lot of anger anyway. And so if they get mad, they're just being what they are. But you can go further. You can do better. You can be better. Commit yourself to your healthy initiatives as opposed to staying in conflict and in combat with these individuals who simply aren't going to make the adjustments. And then a final thing that we can say is when you're dealing with these people, manage your time with them very judiciously. It could be that you'll have to break away completely, and I've known people who've just said, I'm done, I'm out. It may be that that's not really a realistic possibility, and so you'll have to measure your times with these individuals carefully, and in the moments that you have, you just stay functional with them, and that's about it. But then the rest of it is you have your own life, and you live it unapologetically. So when you have this narcissistic system where the name of the game is dominance and control and insensitivity and conformity, I'm hoping there can be a sense in you that says, I know better, I'm on to you, your style of life, even though you may have trained me in it for a long time, it doesn't work for me anymore. I'm on Team Healthy right now, and I'm not going to engage with you in the ways that you demand, but you see, I don't have to filter my life through you anymore. I'll honor family as best as I can, but then even more so, I honor good character. That's what I stand for. I do hope that videos such as this give you some good food for thought. If you've not done so already, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Also, you may know that I have my Dr. Les Carter channel where I discuss other issues as well, and you can subscribe to that one as well. If you have a need for counseling, and this topic we're talking about can prompt the need for counseling, if there's someone in your area, then I would strongly encourage you to seek that out. Or if you would prefer differently, there's online counseling, and we have a sponsor that would take you to an entire team of online therapists with licensed and experienced counselors that could assist you, and you could choose from those. I would strongly encourage you to get the counseling you need. In addition, I have courses that, and these are not just one-off seminars, but they're a whole series of videos and written material and worksheets and things of that nature. This is Me, which is about boundaries, and Free to Be, which is about finding yourself and establishing your own separate identity. And so if you would find those to be helpful, I would encourage you to seek those out. And of course, we have my books, etc. Sometimes family systems can put a lot of pressure on you to be just as dysfunctional as they are. But you know what? You can say no to that. And instead, you can say yes to your own decency and to your own growth initiative. Your own healthiness is not something they have ownership of. That's something you get to decide.